Welcome to the latest edition of the Sight Screen Cricket podcast. I'm your host, Tawhid Qureshi, and this is a really unique edition of the podcast because it's in person. Not done this before. As you can see, I've got with me the doyen of Bangladesh cricket writing, Bangladesh media in general, I would say. Well, Bangladesh cricket media in general, I would say. He is, of course, Mohammed Isam. Welcome, Isam.
Thank you. That's a great compliment.
Oh, it's most heartfelt. So yeah, let me paint the picture for everyone out there. As I say, this is unique. It's the first time I've done an in-person podcast, which is quite exciting in itself. First time I've done a podcast from abroad. First time I've done a podcast from the media centre of a cricket ground. So I'll paint the picture for people. We're at the Chattogram Stadium, International Cricket Stadium, overlooking the field of play. So we're one day out from the first test, and yeah, we can see the India team making their final preparations before the first test tomorrow. There's two nets kind of either side of the ground. There's a net nearest to us, a couple of batters. I'm not quite sure who they are. Somebody probably knows better than I am, but yeah, there's a couple of batters nearest to us, just getting a few throwdowns. And there's also one net at the far end of the ground as well, with a smaller number of India players over there. And actually two India fans in the stands, which has been quite unusual. They're waving two huge India flags. But yeah, we're not here just to talk about what we can see. So yeah, we're going to take a look back at a fantastic ODI series that's just taken place between India and Bangladesh. Here in Bangladesh, of course, winning the series 2-1. So, Isam, I guess, for starters, just your sort of general impression on the series. My feeling is that Bangladesh ran out worthy winners. They outplayed India at those sort of key moments in those first two games, particularly. And I know, there's been a little bit of talk on social media about the fact that, India should be a little bit embarrassed maybe about losing to Bangladesh. But yeah, what's your take on the series?
I mean, it's one of the people who've watched Bangladesh, over the years, especially in the last 7-8 years. One-day cricket has been not just big. I think it's the biggest format for the players, for the country. You'll see that they've lost one one-day series at home in the last maybe 7 or 8 years. Since 2014, actually. Not too surprising at the way they played, how they are slightly more ruthless, what coaches want, a little more tight with their approach in ODIs than they are in T20s and tests. So that wasn't a surprise, but of course doing it against India, especially an India team that we consider as their full team. So I think that aspect of it, that being against India, and Bangladesh aren't really great at following up with one victory with another. So now we have two home series wins against India in one-day series, in one-day cricket. So 2015 and now this one. 7 years apart, but Bangladesh played a lot of one-day matches in these 7 years at home, and they've won a lot. They've only lost to England in 2016, and the rest of the time they've mostly won bilateral series. So and they have qualified for the World Cup as well through this sort of jaunt through one-day cricket that they have, that they're pretty good at this moment.
Absolutely. So yeah, not really a surprise by if you're looking at the greater sort of scheme of things. We're going to kind of zoom in on each of the games in a bit more detail, but I guess just looking at some of the overarching themes of the series. I mean, Mehidy Hasan Miraz, absolute fantastic performances in those first two games, man of the series. Again, as someone who's kind of tracked his progress probably before 2016, actually, probably from his under-19 days where he's captain of the under-19 Bangladesh team. Would you say for him this could end up being like a defining kind of landmark series for him?
Yeah, absolutely. I think his debut series was, many people thought it was a flash in the pan because he did struggle after that. I mean, you can't really follow up with an 18-19 wicket haul in this way. Harvard Singh found out for a very long time it's not easy. Then you have to find out other aspects of cricket. And maybe luckily was a full batsman in his under-19 days, but because of how because of the demands of the Bangladesh team, he had to become an off spinner to bat a bit. But inside him, he always knew that he was a batsman. And through the years, he's got very important contributions in all formats. So the recent one is he was asked to open in the T20s. That was a big call. I mean, he was a fringe player in the T20s. So when he was asked to take the new ball, because no one was doing well, and he did decently. And I mean, they didn't try him in the World Cup, but they may well have because he's shown a lot of guts. And he later told us that after the second ODI when he scored his debut, his maiden 100, that it was playing that new ball regularly in the nets in the last 6 months that has actually helped him as a batter. And knowing him, he actually prides himself in improvement. He's a bit like Mushfiq, that he knows that improvement comes day by day, it doesn't come in one day. So he's started off as a great bowler, then he steadied himself, he became a really good fielder, and now slowly, 2021, he scored runs against the West Indies. He scored runs almost everywhere against most of the opponents, never shied away from the line of the ball. I think that's a great sign. Even if he bats at 8 or 9, you see some of the Bangladesh fast bowlers and the tail-enders, they would run away from the ball sometimes. It's expected from tail-enders. So maybe it's never a tail-ender. And now, as you said, rightfully said, I think for him in his mind, winning a Man of the Series award against India 6 years into his career, this is a good time. It's a good time. It's not the first, like for Mustafiz, it was very hard to manage that expectation for long. So you'll see that Mehidy will have a more central role in Bangladesh in all formats.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. Yeah, actually, I can't remember if it was a press conference before the second ODI, maybe it was, where I think you asked Russell Dominion about the fact that, potentially has Mehidy been kind of undervalued as an asset to the team. And I know Russell in that press conference was like, no, absolutely not. He's one of the first names on the team sheet. And also, I asked Russell Dominion as well about, thinking about long-term successors to Shakib. Okay, he's not a left arm spinner, as we know, but obviously those are huge boots to fill once Shakib does hang the boots up. But yeah, the question is really, can Mehidy kind of rise to that sort of challenge?
Look, when Shakib came into the scene in 2006-07, we were not sure what he was good at. Then he started to show us for the first 3-4 years that he can do a lot of things with bat and ball. And obviously at that time, Bangladesh played a lot of ODI cricket, and that suited his sort of cricket. And they had Mohammad Rafiq and Abdul Razak around. So Shakib's bowling had to become, it had a bit of support around. Mashrafi was at his best at that time. And then as a batter, he was quite important. Bowling started to come in through 2009, 10, like towards that part of his career. And then obviously for the last 10, 12 years, he has been the #1 cricketer in Bangladesh. But it is a very tough role to fill, and Bangladesh has always, had the advantage whenever Shakib, Mushfiq, Riyad, and these players have played. No one actually talked about Mahmudullah taking Shakib's place because he did contribute to bat and ball for a long time. Maybe I think you never know. If he believes, it's all about the belief. I mean, he also said that he actually explained it beautifully after the second one there. Really liked how he explained the belief system to us. I think Shakib was also all about believing that he can do it, he can do both. I mean, he was a batsman. Starting off, he was a batter out from BKSP and the under-19s. So Mehidy also started off as a batter, who bowled a bit, and then the roles started to change. These things happen, but I think at the end of the day, if Mehidy keeps thinking that I think I can be the best all-rounder of this team, I can contribute with bat and ball and fielding all the time, it might be a matter of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my sort of last take on it would be, every cricketer is unique, and you have to play to your own strengths, I guess, and never try to emulate or try to be someone else. Without looking at it too deeply. And maybe there's parallels with like England and Ian Botham, for years, for generations. England were constantly looking for the next Ian Botham.
But I think it's also a bit of the type of cricketer a country wants. So England always had all-rounders, medium-pace all-rounders throughout their history. If you go back 100 years, you might find that coming in. And then Ian Botham was the big star, did it very well. And then you always wanted the next Botham. Now you have had two, and then Ben Stokes. I think now you have to look for the next Ben Stokes at some point. In Bangladesh also, that position of number 5, 6, 7 always had an all-rounder like we had. I mean, now if I mention them, people might laugh at me, but at that time they were important. Mohammad Rafiq was an important all-rounder. Yeah, then Amol Hakmoni was an important all-rounder. He scored runs, he took wickets. Maybe not at the highest level, but that space was created for an all-rounder, a spin bowling all-rounder, with the type of wickets we have. Shakib came in and he started to, take it to the next level. So, he's like he's actually, if you look at his numbers, especially match numbers or match statistics, certain matches, he matches up to all the great all-rounders in the world. So, as you said, it's every cricketer is unique, and when Miraj may be taking that place, I mean, there was a talk that the other Mehidy Hasan, he was going to take Miraj's place, and that's going to be the end of the story. But well, he's proved it that he can actually do the job quite well.
Absolutely. And yeah, just sort of talking about Shakib, that's a good entry point, I think, to looking in a bit more detail at the first ODI that took place, because Shakib with the ball had a fantastic sort of bowling spell. So yeah, looking sort of closely at that game, India bowled all out for 186, which was really, I felt, under par and unexpected in many ways. One of the biggest things as well about that innings was just how many balls remaining they had left in that innings. They bowled out in 41.2 overs, so left an awful lot of runs out there. And as I said, the chief architect of the low score that India achieved, I suppose, from Bangladesh point of view, was Shakib picked up 5 for 36, and also Ebadot, who had a really quietly impressive series. I think he took 4 wickets in the first ODI. I think he took 2 or 3 in the second and a couple in the last. So again, someone who's really kind of starting to grow in stature in all formats. But yeah, as I say, India all out for 186. Possibly the pick from a Bangladesh point of view was the fact that Shakib picked up not only Rohit but also Kohli within the space of 4 balls, and I think it was also the very first over that he bowled. I think he bowled quite early on in the power play as well. So that was sort of fantastic bowling effort from him. KL Rahul for India, top score. 73 for 70. I think he put on a bit of a partnership with Washington Sundar, but no one else really doing anything of great note. So in reply, Bangladesh, got off to a bit of a sticky start. Well, it doesn't get much stickier than a wicket the very first ball of the innings. No for the same Shantu. I don't know, in his defence, I guess it's a very good ball to face first up, sort of 4th, 5th stump line. You've got to play at it. He certainly did play at it, edged it, and he was caught at slip off the very first ball. Nizamdar, made 41 off 63, but it wasn't really a convincing start at all for Bangladesh, and pretty soon, they're in a whole heap of trouble, basically. Finding themselves 9 down, still 51 runs adrift of that victory target. And really, at that stage, I mean, I thought they were dead and buried. Everyone did, right? Everyone did. The crowd had left. I think one or two of the journalists from the press box had started to pack up and write up their reports. I certainly was a little disappointed how they batted, especially the 20 overs that Mushfiq Rahim and Mahmudullah batted. There were no boundaries. They wanted to play a very conservative brand of cricket to make sure that India doesn't get on top of them. But when you play dead in one-day cricket or in any format, actually, even in Test cricket, it's not the batsmen lose their rhythm. Exactly what happened. Bangladesh scored boundaries for about 17, 18 overs. And then the collapse happened. When first, I think Mahmudullah got out, missed a half bowling. Domingo later said that when you have that conservative mentality of not trying to score runs, you miss these balls. But otherwise, you would have just planted it to strike and it was straight into the leg side stand. Mushfiq got out, to Shiraz, and then Afif got out. And it was a free fall, and we never noticed who was at the other end. No one did anything. And somehow, I think Mustafi started with a boundary. Then, best thing he did, Mehidy did was he struck 2 sixes with that following over.
that set back India a little bit, but not totally. And then the drop catch. I think that drop catch when K. Rahul ran all the way back to end leg, and there was a catch of the fine left fielder, it was very nearby, dropped that pretty much a sitter. And I think Mehidy later said that that gave him that sort of confidence. And apparently, Mustafiz was saying that, okay, I'll take it in the body if I have to. I think that was very important as well, because Mehidy wasn't leading his strike, but I think if you remember, towards 20 runs left, tried to give Mustafiz a bit more strike, and then Mustafiz was tightening the ball. And then he tied the game with that boundary, and then, he took it 1 run close, took a single, and then India bowled no balls, and it's very strange of them not bowling a Yorker to Mustafiz. I mean, they were trying to bowl him to his body. What was the point? I mean, it was back under it, and there was the odd full toss, and all of these things happened, and then he struck 3/4 at one point, and that was a scoop and all those shots. I mean, that was brilliant. I think showing that Bangladesh were not there about it, that he didn't give up, and you should have seen how we all saw him. Whoever hasn't seen that game, I think the best reaction was how the dressing room ran out and how Alan Donald, and they were focusing the camera on him. I don't know why. And he was sitting outside, he was so happy. The coaches were hugging, and you don't see that often. Bangladesh wins, and they do beat good teams at home. So yeah, that was something very unique. I've done a few matches like this. Bangladesh doesn't really win by 1 wicket. You see, if you look at the records, they don't really win a lot of matches by 1 wicket or 2 wickets. They either win quite well or they just they lose these games because they don't have a good tail. That's another point. I mean, I later found out that Bangladesh's tail averages tail as in number 9 and 11. They've been averaging 4 this year, which is one of the lowest. So to have that mentality, I mean, kudos to Mehidy for that.
Yeah, I mean, it was impressive in so many ways. And like you say, I guess there are a few factors that kind of led to it. Like you say, I think the Indian bowling and fielding just got progressively more ragged, I think, as that innings wore on, because actually the opening spells of both sort of Siraj and Deepak Chahar right at the top of the innings were really impressive. But yeah, they both kind of took a little bit of tap towards the end. Called it certainly took a lot of tap towards the end. And yeah, just one point that I picked up, and I think you sort of mentioned it there, was how kind of Mehidy kind of fed off Mustafiz's confidence, and it's almost confidence breeding confidence. And the way that Mehidy was talking about it afterwards, it almost sounded like Mustafiz was playing, almost like a senior central role in that partnership.
Mustafiz has been around for slightly longer than Mehidy, but I think they're from the same batch. They're from the same region as well. Mustafiz is from, of course, he's from Sharkira, and Mehidy is from Khulna City. But they've grown up playing same sort of teams together for a long time. So I mean that also helps. I think if you know the guy at the other end, even if Mustafiz doesn't have enough batting skills, but for that he conjured up as much as he could, and that's a good statement for all the other tailenders as well. I think that's another. These are the small things that you can pick up from these wins. I mean, he scored 10 not out, and what happens is that the next time he goes out to bat, he'll have a bit of struck to himself. He might get up for a duck. But the batsman at the other end would know that, okay, he's not like that.
Sure. One last thing that I wanted to mention about this game before we move on to the second ODI was 2 absolute screamers were taken. The first by Little Dust to dismiss Virat Kohli, fantastic leaping salmon-like catch, sort of short cover. Do look it up if you haven't done on YouTube or wherever. I'm sure there's a clip of it. And then in Bangladesh's innings, Kohli again taking another stunning catch to dismiss Shakib. So do check those out. But then, so moving on to the second ODI, which again was, the first one was at Dhaka, the second one again took place again at Dhaka. This time, Bangladesh won the toss again. It was a very narrow victory. They won by 5 runs just. Bangladesh batting first, put on a really reasonable score in terms of the total. It's 271 for 7 in the end, and really, this innings again was built off the back of the man of the moment, Mehidy Hasan Miraz. Scored exactly 100, got to his century off the very last ball of the innings, and a fantastic partnership between him and Mahmudullah as well, who ended up with 77 of 96 runs, and that was, again, a valuable contribution in terms of resurrecting Bangladesh's innings, which at one stage was 69 for 6. And again, in the press box, I was expecting them to fold for I don't know, 120 maybe, 130 absolute tops. I mean, again, your impressions about Century.
Yeah, I think before we can talk about the century, I think it's again the way he had batted well in the previous game, and Mahmudullah is obviously an established batter. India again probably pulled back a little bit from that 20th or 19th over. They allowed that. It happens sometimes. And after 6 for 69, maybe a 30-run partnership, but India couldn't close it out. There wasn't any lot of chances. I don't think there were any chance. I think the way Mehidy again, picked up the pace after I think 33 or 34 overs. Apparently, he told Mahmudullah, just let's just hang back to the 14th over and see what happens. So Mahmudullah waited till 45th or 46th over to start hitting, which was quite natural. But then they had just the tail coming up. And it was a great knock. I mean, 100 towards the end. I think Nasum helped out with a few boundaries, and then that again gave him the confidence to think that yeah, I can just go for it. Those huge sixes towards the end. India again lost the last 10 overs. They gave 100 runs. Yeah. They later said that yeah, these are ones that they have to look at. But I honestly don't. I think this. I wouldn't call it overconfidence, but I think there is a bit of a bit of tiredness coming in at times after they have done bulk of the job. I think a Bangladeshi from a Bangladeshi team, whatever that has happened to them as well. But with a big team, it sometimes can happen with a smaller team that they'll fall over. We'll just get it done. But I think that moment, Bangladesh, because they're so good at one-day cricket, they know the formula to get the hell out of those positions, and they did. But we should also talk about the way they slipped to 6 for 69 that day. I honestly, there can be a lot of talk about the batting. People are going to criticize them, but I think there's a technical problem there. There's a serious technical issue with, and mental issues can be converted to technical issues. I think players like Nazmul Hasan, Shanto, Anamul Haq, Afif, maybe even Mushfiq had a bad time in this contest. I think there should be a bit of thought put to what they were trying to do in one-day cricket or trying to do in all formats. Actually, I think there's a lot of practice in terms of what Mushfiq does. I don't think there's enough time of thinking and maybe reflecting what should be done. I think the problem has persisted throughout the year. Only the first test match did quite well. One or test match against Sri Lanka, but that's not consistency. I think I later found out that it's the lowest batting average for the top 7 Bangladesh has had when they won a series. So it was all down to Mehidy. Great thing. Only Mahmudullah scored a 50 among the top 7. It's not a good sign actually for a team.
No, it's not. And like you say, I think the batting has been a concern for a little while across all formats, particularly that misfiring sort of top 6, top 7. And yeah, another sort of take on it would be that Mehidy is kind of papered over the cracks of those sort of players above him in the batting order, really. But yeah, a couple of sort of observations for me, I suppose, in terms of that Mehidy century. The thing that really impressed me, like you were saying, was just the acceleration. I'm not quite sure how many balls it was. I need to look it up, but I'm sure from sort of 50 to 100, it couldn't have been more than sort of 20 odd balls. 30 right, yeah, 30 odd balls to get in there. And it was fantastic striking, clean hitting as well, which was really impressive. And again, going back to what you were saying about sort of India putting their foot off the gas a little bit, maybe after about the sort of 20th over. Actually, both innings panned out fairly similarly, where again, I think India were about 4 down for about 60 odd, up around the sort of 20 over mark. And again, at that stage, you thought, Bangladesh well on top here. But yeah, let's talk about that India batting innings. First of all, Shreyas Iyer kind of with a good 82 off 102, kind of hauling them back into the game. Akshar Patel as well did his bit, 56 off exactly 56 balls. But yeah, when Rohit Sharma came in at number 8, wasn't it? Yeah, it was at number 8. Still lots to do, and let's rewind a little bit. He'd injured his thumb, dislocated his thumb back in the first innings of the game, trying to take a catch-up slip, which he dropped. Dislocated his thumb, went away for scans, came back again, and was only fit enough to bat down the order. I mean, hugely courageous knock. I mean, let's fast forward to I guess overs 48, 49, 50. So, well, certainly there were 20 needed off the last over. Mustafi's bowling. I mean, Rohit at that point was kind of seeing the ball like a football, clearing the ropes with ease. I mean, what were your thoughts kind of going into that
I couldn't sit down because I thought they took it too deep. They had to have two bowlers behind. They should have left two bowlers with enough overs, but then they had to change Mehidy with Mahmudullah. Mahmudullah did well.
Well, two drops. Let's talk about those two drops.
Very simple chances. They got a drop on fine leg running back, and then I think Ahmad Vijay didn't read the ball well. Maybe it was the lights, but it went really high, and probably he had enough time. But by the end of the catch going down, it was, he didn't even touch the ball. So that was quite disappointing. But I think Bangladesh always knew in the back of the mind that wickets would get them close. Mustafi's bowled well in the final over, shortened his run up and bowled good Yorkers. Right, the last ball mattered. Yeah. But he was hitting the ball really well to point and that region as well. So they couldn't put that fielder back. They had to protect deep mid wicket. Mirpur has that sort of quality at times. Disappointing that the wicket is not always that good. But when Rohit was going for his shots, the ball was bouncing pretty well. It wasn't that bad. But again, we should just acknowledge the fact that there were two unbelievably good one-day matches. Both matches right down to the umpire. He couldn't have asked for more. So yeah, I mean, maybe Indians are disappointed with the result, but yeah, as number of times that Rohit Sharma and their team has said that they have they're trying a few things. I think they're trying to have a bigger base of all-rounders because Ravi Muzafar is injured. It's quite strange to see Wahid Rastogi coming to bat at 4, but again, they're trying to give him a better role, a bigger role ahead of the World Cup. They want these backups to be ready. Shardul Thakur, who can bat, obviously. Akshar Patel batted quite well. And they also have Deepak Chahar down the order. So I think they want these players to have a few more dimensions to their batting, which didn't work out in this series, but I'm sure that they'll find out a way to have enough specialists, but with a number of all-rounders on the top. I think that slightly played in Bangladesh's hand in this series because they knew that they didn't have one of those Dhonis or Jadeja right down the order who could score from them, would have just changed the course of the game. So maybe that's why Bangladesh felt a little more confident towards the end. But again, Rohit Sharma coming in at number 9 was epic. I think it was brilliant batting with it's difficult to have a very soft top hand when you're trying to swing it on the leg side, but because he still needed that support. I felt that he almost played a captain's knock. It was a great knock, nearly there.
Absolutely. I mean, it was a brilliant knock. Obviously, if he had got them over the line. No, absolutely not. I mean, well, yeah, it was. I mean, let's just talk about the crowd for a second. I mean, echo what you say. It was fantastic 2 games of ODI cricket. Thrilling, as thrilling the 2 games that I can remember and can't witness them. And, the crowd were phenomenal in both games. Like you say, some of the crowd left prematurely in that first game. But, when, Mirpur is under lights with the game in the balance, full house, it's just, there's no atmosphere like it. And just one particular highlight for me in that second ODI was when Eberdot got the wicket of Kohli. So I was on the roof of the media centre when that happened. And, the place just erupted. So Kohli chopped onto his stumps. Eberdot ran maybe 50, 60 metres. Imran Tahir, basically square of the boundary is where the dressing rooms are, and that's exactly where he headed, just sprinted towards that direction, all his teammates running after him, crowd erupting. It really was kind of spine-tingling stuff. So yeah, that was the thrilling kind of end to the series in the sense of Bangladesh winning it. Of course, there was one more match remaining. It was a dead rubber. And we were all interested to. So that's the third game, which took place down here at Chattogram a few days after the second ODI. We were all interested to see if Bangladesh could make it a clean sweep, which would have been phenomenal. In the event, it didn't happen, and I think this game was basically dominated by a total blitz of a partnership by Ishan Kishan and Virat Kohli. Ishan Kishan's 210 or 131 balls, absolutely phenomenal. The fastest ever double hundred in ODI cricket, which a phenomenal record. And Virat Kohli himself helping himself to 113 runs off 91 balls, his first ODI ton in over 3 years. But what a partnership between those two.
Unbelievable, and to think that India were without their captain, one batsman less, so they had to play Ishan Kishan. One of my favorite young players around the world. He is obviously brilliant in the IPL. Gets very limited chances for India. This is 9th ODI, I think, 9th or 10th ODI. And lots of records. Youngest double century, and I think also first cricketer to have a double century is maiden done. And the first one in Bangladesh. I mean, given the sort of wickets that we've had in Chattogram, there should have been one. But we haven't had one. I think Shane Watson's 185 was the highest that was in Dhaka. It's unbelievable now. I mean, the way he was hitting the ball on the leg side, a bit of Brian Lara to it, but apparently it's the way he plays, and he went after everything, and the Bangladesh bowlers had an off day. Some people say that there were 2 big games in the FIFA World Cup the night before. Maybe they were watching the Brazil quarterfinal, the Argentina quarterfinal. I don't know about that, but even if it was, I think they're professional enough to come out and be prepared for the game. But I think Liton's dropped catch early on in the article.
Yes.
That really set the tone.
Dropped on one.
Yeah. And again, if he had taken that catch, probably the game would have gone a different way, because then Ishan wouldn't have that cushion to bat in that way. Even if he would have, it would have been slightly toned down. But this guy, phenomenal cricketer, the future of Indian cricket. I mean, the way he plays square of the wicket, I cannot imagine what might happen in better wickets in Australia or England, where he will get a bit more room, a bit more pace to play with. I think the faster people bowl at him, he's actually better at that. He's also good at spin bowling. Him and Rishabh Pant are exciting names. I think if India ever wants to go baseball, India guys to rocket charge their turbo boost their batting. Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, why not Ishan Kishan at Test cricket? England can have Will Jacks and Harry Brook in their Test team and 5 in supporting conditions on good batting wickets. Why not? We might see them on, but it's a very crowded batting lineup, as we can see. And it's a good thing. And also, as my colleague Siddharth Monga has written after his innings, that the way India bats in white ball cricket, probably this innings is going to put everyone on alert and make sure they bat slightly like him. Because I think they have this problem since the T20 World Cup, where they go slow with their power play batting. But I'm sure now, with him now having done this, people have to catch up to him. So it's a good thing for India.
Absolutely. I mean, just a final word on that partnership, it was worth 290 of 190 balls, and really did bat Bangladesh.
It's not always you can put Virat Kohli in the shade.
Absolutely, yeah. He was playing second fiddle for like large portions of that partnership. And yeah, as you say, I mean, the fact that Ishan Kishan isn't an automatic pick for India just really does demonstrate the strength and depth that the batting riches that they have. So yeah, to wrap up that ODI then, yeah. So India finished on a huge 409 for 8 off their 50 overs. Actually, at one stage it was looking like it could have been significantly more, 450 plus at one point. So yeah, the Bangladesh bowlers did drag it back a little towards the end, but still a huge target of 410 to chase for them. And really, they were never at the races in reply. They folded on 182 all out of 34 overs. Shakib top scored with 43 off 50, but even when Shakib was kind of batting, it never really looked like they were going to mount a serious challenge. And in terms of the Indian bowling, the wickets were kind of shared around. Thakur ended up with 3 for 30 off 5 overs, and a couple of wickets each as well for Akshay Patel and Umran Malik. But yeah, that was the end of the ODI series basically. So yeah, 2-1 victory to Bangladesh, as we sort of said before. Thrilling series. And yeah, I don't know, any final reflections on it from you?
182 in 34 overs. I think after the end of that third ODI, Litton came out and said that we didn't want to bat for 300. I was a little surprised. I thought, what is he talking about? Then I realized that he was actually talking about trying to go for a 400. So that's a breath of fresh air. I hope this message carries over to every part of Bangladesh cricket team and management and the cricket board, because this is what the message is, that this is the sort of wicket they will get in India in the World Cup. There will be 300 plus scores regularly. There will be the odd 380, 400, and Bangladesh has to chase it, or they have to set these targets on these small grounds, flat wickets. There was a talk about how we were all talking about how they can have the World Cup, maybe a camp game or something. It's unlikely, because apparently after the match, Nabil Hassan, the district president, said that no, it's not a sporting weekend. I think sometimes leave it to the cricket experts to decide these things, because I'm sure that going forward, Bangladesh have ODIs against England, only in Minput. I don't think they'll risk England over here. Ireland also, I don't think they'll come here, because Ireland is a very good batting lineup. Then they have, I think, Afghanistan. They also have a New Zealand series. So these are the 12 matches they have before the World Cup. Whether it's points or not, they have to play a significant amount of matches in Chattogram and Stadium Media Centre at home. Plainly because we have had this experience, the Bangladesh team has had this really terrible experience of playing in absolutely terrible wickets in Midpur for 10 T20 matches, went to the World Cup, and that form changed. And they're still struggling in T20s. So I think that's the final thought, that there's something to learn from that defeat, that they will be facing 400. I like the fact the way we were watching from the rooftop, remember, Anamol and Litton started. Obviously, soft dismissal, but it has to start somewhere. And I think that's a good place to start. I think if someone's given that license, they'll go ahead and play 10 matches, just go for it. Like Ishan Kishan, Bangladesh fun. Bangladesh needs players like that, top of the order, or number 7. They have now Miraj, Mahmudullah is doing well, but they need some big hitters at the top as well. I think Litton is really good at attacking the bowlers, getting on top of them. You see it in the World Cup against India. We need that sort of batting lineup, but at the end of the day, acceptance of certain cricketing ideas, Bangladesh cricket has to be a little modern, I think. They won against India in beautiful, super one-day matches, but just look at how they play. That's not how you play ODI cricket now. So I think thinking a little forward would be the right way.
And just the final thought from me, I guess. So you were talking about Litton there a little bit, just in terms of his captaincy. I mean, captaining a team in your maiden series to a 2-1 win over India is obviously absolutely huge. I guess the one question mark would be, did it affect his batting form? So you've got a couple of starts in those games to really go on and kind of show us, like you say, exactly what we know that he is capable of. But for me, certainly in that first game, hugely impressive with his bowling changes, to restrict India to such a low total, bowl them out well within the 50 overs was a big deal. But yeah, your kind of reflections on his captaincy.
Yeah, I think in Bangladesh, captaincy is all about respect in the dressing room. I think he has huge respect in the dressing room from senior players and junior players. That's where it all starts, and I think that plays a huge role in him going out there and taking decisions. Apparently, he had a lot of help from the senior players like Shakib and Mushfiq, and I know for a fact that these are like Shakib and Mushfiq really, adores Litton the way he has played. We've been seeing it for a long time that they just don't want to hear anything bad about Litton. Even Tamim and Mashavi are like that, so it's pretty much widespread. That helped Litton a lot, and he's got a good cricketing brain, I think. The way he has changed the way he bats from 2018 to now, that took a lot of guts, that took a lot of technical nuance to understand the nuance of his batting. And I think he's translated to cricket. He's a wicket keeper, so obviously he reads the pitch well. Spent a million games in Midpur, so all of them was in his corner, but he used all of these, he utilized it quite well. So maybe one for the future, maybe not now, but I think post 2023 World Cup, we all know what might happen. But it's a good captain to have in the back pocket.
Brilliant. Thank you, Isam for all of those reflections on
Record-breaking podcast.
Yeah, like I say, unique. I mean, hopefully, you know, I was saying to Isam before we started, it's a bit of an echoing room. I've managed to kind of source a room which is actually right next to one of the commentary boxes here in the media centre at Chattogram. But hopefully, you know, it all sounds okay. I mean, Isam, it'd be great to maybe have another chat as the test series progresses. As I've said, you know, the first test begins less than 24 hours time. But yeah, for the time being, thank you for all your thoughts, and thank you everyone for watching. Until the next time, this has been the Silent Screen Cricket Journal podcast. Bye for now.